A white van sits alone in the middle of the Wyoming wilderness. No movement, no sound, just a locked vehicle, abandoned near a campsite. Hours earlier, witnesses say they saw a young couple arguing. Days later, the woman vanished without a trace. And while the entire country searched for answers, the only person who knew the truth was already driving home, alone.
Well, I see that grass with his nail, and I guess that's why it was. I definitely have a cut right here, so I can feel it.
Yeah.
It's really burned.
The FBI announced that they had located remains just outside Grand Teton National Park.
July 2021. 22-year-old travel vlogger Gabby Petito looked like she was living the dream. Alongside her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, she had converted a white Ford Transit van into a tiny home and planned a 4-month cross-country road trip across America's national parks. Their social media pages showed smiling selfies, mountain sunsets, yoga poses, and captions about freedom, adventure, and love. To thousands of followers online, they looked like the perfect couple, but behind those carefully edited photos, something darker was happening. Gabby had spent months preparing for the trip. She worked exhausting shifts to save money, obsessed over growing their travel blog, and dreamed of building a successful online brand. She poured everything into the journey. Brian seemed less interested in the social media side of things, and according to people who knew them, the relationship had become tense long before they ever hit the road. Still, on July 2nd, 2021, they left New York and headed west. At first, everything appeared normal. They traveled through Colorado and Utah, visiting national parks and documenting every stop. Gabby uploaded photos constantly, showing peaceful campsites and beautiful landscapes. But as the weeks passed, cracks in the relationship began to show. Friends later said Gabby often seemed emotionally drained. She was trying desperately to keep the trip together, while also managing the pressure of filming, editing, posting, and living full-time in a cramped van. Then came the moment that would later haunt millions of people watching the case unfold. On August 12th, police in Moab, Utah received a disturbing 911 call. The caller described a man slapping a woman outside the Moonflower Community Cooperative grocery store. The couple then climbed into a white van and drove away. Minutes later, officers spotted the vehicle near the entrance to Arches National Park. The Bodycam footage from that traffic stop would become one of the most analyzed videos in true crime history. Gabby sat inside the van crying uncontrollably. Her hands shook as she tried to explain what happened. Between sobs, she blamed herself repeatedly. She said she had been stressed out trying to build their website and social media pages. She apologized over and over, saying she had OCD tendencies and became overwhelmed trying to keep the van clean and organized. Every time officers asked questions, Gabby redirected blame back onto herself. Meanwhile, Brian stood outside with police appearing calm, relaxed, even smiling at times. He described Gabby as emotional and anxious, saying she got worked up easily. Officers noticed scratches on his face and arms, which he claimed came from Gabby during the argument. The police ultimately decided not to arrest either of them. Instead, they classified the situation as a mental health crisis, rather than domestic violence. Brian was taken to a hotel for the night, while Gabby stayed alone in the van. At the time, it seemed like the incident was over, but later, domestic violence experts would watch the footage and point out chilling warning signs. Gabby's emotional state, the way she continuously blamed herself, the imbalance in behavior between the two of them. Many believed she appeared frightened, manipulated, and emotionally trapped. Her parents later said watching that footage was devastating because they felt the signs were there, but nobody realized how serious the situation really was. Despite the incident, the couple continued traveling together. Then something strange happened. On August 17th, Brian suddenly flew from Salt Lake City back to Florida, leaving Gabby alone in Utah. According to the Laundrie family attorney, he returned home to move belongings out of a storage unit because the couple planned to extend the road trip. Gabby stayed alone at a hotel near the airport during that time. For nearly a week, she was by herself. Brian eventually flew back and reunited with her on August 23rd. 2 days later, on August 25th, Gabby spoke with her mother for what would become the final time. She said they were heading toward Grand Teton National Park in Yellowstone. That same day, she uploaded her final Instagram post, smiling in front of a butterfly mural in Ogden, Utah. Nobody knew it then, but Gabby was running out of time. On August 27th, witnesses reported seeing Gabby and Brian at a restaurant called Mary Piglet's in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Multiple employees later described Brian acting aggressively during an argument with staff. Witnesses said Gabby appeared visibly upset and apologized for his behavior while crying. Hours later, surveillance cameras captured the couple at a Whole Foods store in Jackson. They entered the store together around 2:14 p.m. 30 minutes later, they drove away toward the remote wilderness of Spread Creek in Bridger Teton National Forest. That footage would become the last confirmed video of Gabby alive. Later that evening, Gabby's mother received a strange text message from Gabby's phone. "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." The message immediately felt wrong. Gabby never called her grandfather by his first name. Her mother sensed something was off almost instantly. Then, silence. No calls. No FaceTimes. No social media activity. Nothing. Meanwhile, witnesses near Spread Creek began noticing strange things. One woman later told investigators she saw the couple's white van parked oddly near the campsite on August 27th and 28th. She claimed she saw a man matching Brian's description acting strangely nearby. Around the same time, a traveling YouTube couple unknowingly captured the van on dash cam footage while driving through the area. The van appeared abandoned, sitting alone near the tree line. That video would later become one of the biggest breaks in the case. Then came another bizarre encounter. On August 29th, a woman and her boyfriend picked up a hitchhiker near Coulter Bay in Wyoming. The man introduced himself as Brian. He offered them $200 for a short ride, which immediately struck them as odd. According to the couple, Brian acted nervous and kept talking rapidly. But the moment he realized they were driving toward Jackson Hole instead of Jackson, he suddenly panicked and demanded to be let out near Jackson Lake Dam. The entire interaction felt off. Another woman later picked him up nearby. She also described him as anxious and uncomfortable. He reportedly asked to be dropped off near the entrance to Spread Creek instead of directly at the campsite, even though it was a long walk from there. By now, Gabby had effectively disappeared. On August 30th, Gabby's mother received one final text from her daughter's phone. No service in Yosemite, but there was a problem. Investigators later realized Gabby and Brian were nowhere near Yosemite National Park in California. They had been in Wyoming. Her family immediately suspected the message wasn't written by Gabby at all. Investigators would later believe someone was attempting to create a false timeline after Gabby's death. Then came the moment that shocked the nation. On September 1st, Brian Laundrie arrived back at his parents' home in Northport, Florida, alone. He drove the white van back without Gabby, and somehow, nobody contacted police. For days, Gabby's family desperately tried reaching both Gabby and Brian. Their calls went unanswered. Messages were ignored. Brian refused to speak with investigators. His parents hired an attorney and also declined to cooperate. Public suspicion exploded online. People across the country couldn't understand one thing. How does a man return home from a cross-country trip without his fiancée and stay silent while her family searches for her? On September 11th, Gabby was officially reported missing. The story instantly became national news. FBI agents descended on Wyoming and Florida. Search crews combed through forests, campsites, and national parks. Social media users analyzed every photo, every video, every timeline detail. Millions of people followed the investigation in real time. Then the case took another shocking turn. On September 13th, Brian himself vanished. His parents claimed he left home to go hiking in a nature reserve and never returned. Police surveillance confusion delayed the search after officers mistakenly believed they saw him return home days later, when it was actually his mother. Now both Gabby and Brian were missing. For weeks, investigators searched massive wilderness areas in both Wyoming and Florida. Then, on September 19th, authorities made a heartbreaking discovery. Human remains were found near Spread Creek in Wyoming. close to where the white van had been captured on dash cam footage. The remains belonged to Gabby Petito. An autopsy later confirmed the cause of death was homicide by strangulation and blunt force injuries. The estimated time of death placed it around late August, just days before Brian returned home alone.
The autopsy of Gabby Petito was performed yesterday, giving the official confirmation about the remains that were found in Grand Teton National Park Sunday.
The country was horrified. What began as a missing persons case had become one of the most infamous murder investigations in recent history. Days later, federal authorities issued an arrest warrant for Brian related to unauthorized use of Gabby's debit card after her death. Investigators believed he used her accounts while traveling back to Florida in an attempt to finance his escape and create misleading digital activity. The search for Brian intensified. Then, on October 20th, nearly 5 weeks after disappearing, investigators found skeletal remains in a Florida nature reserve previously flooded underwater. Nearby, they recovered a backpack, a notebook, and a revolver. Dental records confirmed the remains belonged to Brian Laundrie. A forensic examination later concluded he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. For many people, it felt like the final answers had died with him, but investigators weren't done yet. Months later, the FBI revealed they had recovered writings from Brian's notebook. Inside, he admitted responsibility for Gabby's death. According to investigators, Brian also confessed to sending deceptive text messages after Gabby died in order to make it appear she was still alive. In the notebook, he attempted to justify killing her by claiming she had suffered an injury, and he was ending her pain. Experts and investigators rejected the explanation entirely, believing it was an attempt to avoid accountability for murder. For Gabby's family, the confession changed nothing. They had already lost their daughter. In the years that followed, Gabby's death sparked national conversations about domestic violence, coercive control, and how warning signs are often overlooked. Her parents filed lawsuits against the Moab Police Department, arguing officers failed to properly identify signs of abuse during the traffic stop weeks before her murder. Although a judge later dismissed the lawsuit under Utah's governmental immunity laws, the court acknowledged the officers' actions may have contributed to the tragic outcome. Gabby's family also pursued civil action against Brian's estate and later reached a settlement with Brian's parents after accusing them of withholding information, while Gabby's family desperately searched for answers. Today, the case of Gabby Petito remains one of the most disturbing examples of how dangerous relationships can hide behind seemingly perfect social media images. Millions of people watched Gabby smiling through photos and videos online, but behind the camera, something terrifying was unfolding. And by the time the world realized it, it was already too late.